You're welcome to another edition of Fact Sheet. I should tell you, it's Tuesday evening live on eTVGhana. Tonight we are talking about a very important issue, a topic that I believe a lot of you would have an interest in. It has to do with the role of the media in the 2020 elections. You'd agree with me, there are just a few more days before we go and cast our ballot to select members of parliament and then the president for our nation, Ghana. If it's the NPP, if it's the NDC, if it's the CPP, the PPP, or any of the other political parties, the expectation is that the media would feed the viewers, the listeners, the Ghanaian electorate, the content that would inform who they cast their ballot for. Question is, have we been doing that? Have we done that? And would we do that? That's what we are talking about this evening live on eTV on Fact Sheet. As always, if it's not a fact, we don't talk about it. And I always encourage you to take your sheets with us, even as we interrogate the issues with my guests, as we look at this all-important issue for this evening. I know you've been following the conversation from the time the Electoral Commission started the registration exercise to compile a new register. Were you satisfied with the reportage of the media? And by that, I mean the TV, the radio, the print, and even now, social media. And so we'll talk about these, whether so far the kind of content we produce over the period until now, the build up to the 2020 elections, whether you have been satisfied with it. I hear a lot of people talk about the ethics of the job. What really are the ethics of the job? I hear a lot of people talk about fair coverage. What does it mean to talk about fair coverage, and have we delivered in terms of the fair coverage that you expect of us as media men? I hear a lot of people talk about the media and circumspection. What constitutes circumspection? I hear a lot of people talk about selectivity and objectivity when it comes to the delivery of the media. Tonight, that's what we are talking about live on Fact Sheet. My name is Samuel Ishen, and my guests are with me to discuss the role of the media in the 2020 elections. We'll take a short breather. When we come back, I will introduce you to my guests, and then we'll set the ball rolling. And it's 5 minutes after 8 live on eTVGhana and live on Facebook as well, and Twitter and Instagram as well. Tonight, our handle is eTVGhana. For Twitter, it's eTV_Ghana. And you can follow the conversation and share your thoughts, your views, and your comments on the issues we are talking about this morning. My guests tonight are Mr. Kweku Krobia Asante. He's a program officer for the Media Foundation for West Africa. And Madam Gloria Hiadzi, she is the executive secretary for GEBA. We'll be joined by the Vice President of PRIMPAC this evening in the course of our deliberations. Mr. David Tamaklo will join us on the phones for us to also talk to them in terms of the agenda setting when it comes to the role of the media in the coverage of the election 2020. So, good evening, Gloria, and good evening to you, Kweku, and thanks for joining me this evening on the show. Good evening. All right, so I know the Media Foundation for West Africa has been the guard dogs for the media virtually, and also for the political parties as well, in terms of the content we put out there and with your fact checking that you have been doing. You have also been checking that the media is using, you know, the appropriate language in communicating to Ghanaians. And so you have, over the period, been giving us reports about those who have been using foul language and indecent language as well. So far, in assessing the preparedness and then our professionalism from the time when the Electoral Commission started its registration exercise, how would you say the media has fared?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Sammy, and good evening to your viewers. And it is important that we have this conversation, especially when we are about 2 weeks to the elections. And rightly so, the Media Foundation for West Africa since 2012 has this election monitoring project. Essentially, we say watching the watchdog. We think that the media plays the watchdog role ahead of the elections, as in monitoring what is happening, doing the analysis, flagging the abuses in the process and all that. But in that process, we think that in they playing their watchdog role, they sometimes falter and make those mistakes. And so We have been running this for 2012. We've done this in 2016 and 2020. And what we are seeing as the trend now, compared to, let's take for instance the 2016, the figure shows an increase, for instance, in the use of indecent expressions on radio stations. And also we are monitoring the media for ethics and professional standards, and we see so much infractions and so much violations. If you indulge me, I'm going to take us through some data. In 2012, for instance, the Media Foundation for West Africa monitored 31 radio stations, and in the process monitored 2,850 programs. We recorded 509 indecent expressions. Now, 4 years later, in 2016, we monitored 70 radio stations, and in the process monitored 16,006 programs, and then the indecent expressions dropped to 464 indecent expressions. So we thought that we were on a smooth ride to some decorum, some fact-based discussions, some discussions that are devoid of insults and focusing on the analysis. But in 2020, even though we are still in the process, since we started in June, really, to September, we had recorded 333 indecent expressions from 40 radio stations. Remember, we monitored 70 in 2016, and of course, this time COVID-19 affecting funding and all its process. We have recorded 333, just about 100 shy from the 2016 figure, and this is up to September. So we are monitoring October, November, and then December, and I think that it doesn't augur well. It doesn't show a very great picture when it comes to the use of abusive language, which we know from history, from the literature, that has caused problems in Cote d'Ivoire, that has caused problems in Kenya. And these are red flags for us to guide ourselves.
But before you proceed, from your point of view, what constitutes indecent language or abusive language? What are the parameters?
Well, so we have this instrument we call the Election Communication Guide, put together by experts in linguistics and communication, looking at the full gamut of what we consider to be indecent expressions. But as you have asked, let me give you some of the high points. So we have things like insults and offensive language. Okay, when people use, and I can use them on air because it's against our policy, it's counterproductive when you are monitoring and you are going to air them again. So we have what we call insults and offensive expressions. We have what we call divisive comments. We have what we call unsubstantiated allegations, and that one is just sitting on air saying something with no basis, no evidence, no facts to support it, and just throwing against somebody. We have what we call ethnic slurs. We have what we call bigotry and prejudice. We have what we call gender-based violence. We have what we call expletives. We have what we call threats, threatening people on air. And so a number of these categorizations of what we call indecent expressions. And now, over the time, we have realized that insults and offensive comments, unsubstantiated allegations, and threats happen to be the major bane, the major highlight of indecent expression on air. It appears that the media is failing, one, to hold people to account, to give us answers, to give us evidence of claims they make on air, and they are allowing people to insult for free, and this can be very detrimental to the peace, to the stability we have built over the years.
Now, let me come to Gloria and find out, as much as the standards are very high when, we seek to demand of journalists to be professional in their line of work, from your point of view as a member of the Executive Secretary of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, with the proliferation of many media houses, who can be considered as a professional when it comes to broadcasting today? Because all these things that, Koku is talking about emanates from the expectation that that professional journalist would conduct himself well on air. That's the question is, who really is a professional journalist?
Thank you. I believe that for a person to be considered a professional journalist, then he or she should be upholding the tenets of good professional practices. And as watchdog, to play the watchdog role, then it means that the journalist needs to inform the public, the listening audience, the viewing audience. The journalist would have to play his or her role of educating the public, and then whichever role is also included in being a watchdog role. So to clearly carry out those roles, the journalist would have to first get him or herself, educated and well abreast with issues and policies, so that when interviewing guests or whoever is on the show, the person can really direct the agenda, because the journalist is supposed to be the agenda setter, not allow the interviewee to set the agenda, because then how would the journalist then be able to inform and educate his or her listening audience? Yeah.
All right, so I'll come back to you, but Kogo, let me raise then the question about, you know, ownership of media houses today. And it's all going to feed into the broader conversation of the role we are supposed to play. Because if you look around, it's beginning to look like the people that we are supposed to be fact-checking virtually are the ones who are owning a lot of the media houses in the system today. And so it allows for your concerns then to pop up for people who are supposed to be, you know, professional, but because a politician owns that platform, you know, that person has the impetus to, you know, speak certain kind of languages to people on the opposite side, because the owner of that media house is supposed to be a friendly fire. Does that, you know, form one of the basis for these concerns that, you know, we're discussing today?
Well, Sammy, and this is one of the major challenges for us. And the point you are talking about, we call it the political capture of the media. Okay? And I think about some 4 or 5 years ago, the Media Foundation for West Africa did a project we call the Media Ownership Monitor, MOM, so that we want to monitor who are the owners of the media organizations in Ghana. And you'll be amazed that the capture of the media, when we say capture, the politicians, the businessmen who have captured the media, in the sense that if they own the media, they say he who pays the piper calls the tune. So if they own the media, then they get to decide what the media stations or the radio stations or the media outlet should broadcast. It will interest you to know that in this year, our monitoring of the indecent expressions on air, some of the radio stations that have stood up, and it's a public document we published. Yeah. Power FM, Oman FM, Wuntumi FM in Kumasi. These 3 media organizations have stood up, and they are the leading media organizations in our indecent language monitoring. And we are also monitoring for ethics. I couldn't highlight because of the time, but with time we are also monitoring the media for ethical and professional standards. Again, Power FM or Man FM are the 2 radio stations who are leading. And these are politically aligned radio stations who are owned by politicians who are not hidden. They are known that they are the owners. So it's a major challenge for us even going into these elections. It is going to extend or set in a stream the polarization in the reportage, which can be very, very, very detrimental, or I'm just trying to choose my words well, can be very dangerous for what we want to do. Our solution, we always say, we lay it down to the journalists, to the individual media practitioners. If indeed you want to call yourself a journalist, then you have to uphold some of the ethical principles or standards that must guide your work. Indeed, I think that we don't even have to qualify a journalist by a professional, because by virtue of you choosing to be a journalist, you have certain professional and ethical standards that are laid down for you. It's either you are living by it or not, because you occupy a very sensitive, a very crucial and a very important role that if you choose not to abide by these standards or these professional or these ethical standards, you are leading us into chaos.
So I asked the question then, from the time that the Electoral Commission started its registration exercise, we saw the 2 major political parties, you know, movements going down. Till now that we have just a few days more before we go into the elections, Gloria, how would you assess the media in terms of, one, professionalism, fair reportage for all the political parties so far, and then our conduct? As for Media Foundation for West Africa, at least we know where they're coming from. But how would you assess the conduct of the media?
Okay, at least a few media platforms I have been able to monitor, I've realized that they provide the political parties extensive coverage. Okay, they actually follow the campaign teams wherever they go. So for fair reportage, I think they are doing quite well in that aspect. And then, what's the other one?
Balance.
Yeah, so I think both go together. Both go together, fair reportage, balance, because if they are able to send their teams, and they have teams who follow the various campaign teams around. So you realize somebody is reporting from one part of the country, another person is reporting from another part of the country. And in my estimation, that provides some balance and fairness, so that the Ghanaian populace is able to know the various policies that the political parties are propagating or wish to provide to us when they are voted into power. And I think that's good enough.
But, you know, on the matter of fair, balanced reportage, I'm sure the first thing that comes to mind will be the NPP and the NDC. But it's not just about the NPP and the NDC. It's about the CPP, it's about the PPP, it's about the GUM, it's about the rest of the smaller political parties. You think we've been fair enough in keeping the balance in terms of the allocation of time for the NDC and the NPP, and then the other smaller political parties?
Well, I think we'll also need to ask the question of how active are the other political parties on the ground compared to the NDC and the NPP? Because, fair enough, the media seems to be reporting on just the NDC and the NPP. But how active is the CPP? How active is the PPP? How active is GUM? How active is the LPG and the other political parties? So if they are also that active, but the media is not giving them that much coverage, then we'll have a problem. But it appears to me, okay, I may be mistaken, but it appears to me that they are not as active as the NDC and the NPP. Maybe that is why we are not hearing so much about them. Okay, because at least they've got vans that they use around. They've got their social media pages as well. But you realize that, talk about social media pages, the NPP and the NDC are very active on their social media pages compared to the other parties. So let's be fair to the media. Let us not be too harsh in judging them.
But is it not because, you know, some personnel have been allocated or assigned to these two major political parties? That's how we're able to hear their stories. I'll give you an example, for instance. I saw Akpalu's team on the Konogo stretch just this weekend. And he was just, going with his 4 or 5, convoy, and there was no buzz about it. There was no reportage Monday morning. There was no reportage on social media. And I asked, if a media person was with the team, would we not hear what Akpalu has been saying to the people in the constituencies he might have visited? Okay,
so the way the media works, fair enough, the media or journalists go looking for stories. But sometimes you need to sell yourself. So if you approach a media house or two and request for coverage, they will definitely provide that coverage, because news is news. Okay, it is not like you're buying airtime to advertise your party or your product. It is news, and we all go for news. We need news. We have to hear what is news anyway. So then the social media pages, most of the times, I know it is the organization itself or the party itself that usually champions that one. So you would not expect a media house sitting somewhere doing his or her own job to come manage your social media pages for you. That is the job of the party itself, its communication team. The media is just to follow with the camera, provide pictures or stories in the newspapers or even on radio or television. So let us cut them a little bit.
You think the media has been balanced and then fair in its reportage? The reason why it's important we raise this matter has been over the years the accusations that have come, especially when it comes to the state broadcasters, where we would hear that the opposition political parties are saying, and it's been the case for some time now, where they say, okay, when this person is in power, coverage for the opposition political party is limited. And then when the tables turn, the people who are in power previously will now begin to accuse the same state institution that coverage for my party activities is limited. So even if the private media is finding it difficult to cover the smaller parties, is that not a problem in terms of fairness and balance?
Well, I think that we need to look at the matter in its entirety, okay? So that we look at the nuances and the details going into these elections. I stand to be corrected, but I think that this year's ballot is going to be one of the lengthiest we have recorded. About 12 people on the ballot sheet, so that the media will have to deal with all these 12 people, which has not happened in previous times. Again, I stand to be corrected. 2, we are in a year where the media is financially broken. COVID-19 has dealt a big blow. Already, the funding process of the media, which has been through adverts, has been failing, and has been at Media Foundation. We have been again and again talking about media financial sustainability, and in our ways established projects that are funding some media organizations in the West Africa region. Then COVID-19 comes in. Some media organizations have slashed the incomes of journalists, have let some go. I hear some are even into farming now, trying to get monies to support themselves. And so on their side, every newsroom has been shrunk, has been affected. So the numbers are not there. And so at some point, they may have to go for the macro ones, the bigger ones. I can understand in the name of fairness and balance, they should extend a good hand to these people. Again, it also comes down to giving content when you have so much, manifesto, something to discuss. Only a few of these political parties have endeavored to put out a manifesto to support. So yes, we can criticize the media across many levels, professional standards, ethical standards. But I think when it comes to these, trying to cover all the 12 people, as far as and this is my personal opinion, I think that they have made some good attempts. I have heard some good accounts from GUM, I have heard some good accounts from Madame Ekuadonko, from LPG, Apalu, and all those people. But of course, it's a world of the majority. It's a world of for the people who dominate. And so every now and then you get the NPP and the NDC. And again, I must say, perhaps the media can do better, but they're also very restrained.
All right, so we'll take a short break. When we come back, I know you have lingering questions. What really are the expectations? What do you expect us to do as media? At least we've taken a look at the period from the registration exercise to now. Now, what we're going to be talking about is what you expect us to do between now that the elections would happen, during the time that the elections is happening, and then post the elections, the issues about declaration of results, the issues about polling station results, provisional ones that come in, and calling, results during elections. Then, most importantly, the issue which has been brewing from last week until now, which has to do with some media personnel who could not find their names in a list that was submitted to the Electoral Commission for them to enjoy the benefit of special voting. What happens to content that on the D-Day, listeners, viewers, and audience would be expecting that the media would generate? Would it affect reportage during the 2020 elections? We'll be right back. We've done 29 minutes into 8, and this is Fact Sheet live on eTVGhana. Here, it's about the fact and nothing but the fact. And as much as possible, we discuss the issues dispassionately. We bring out the tangents that are usually lost out in the conversation, and then we feed you the right content after removing the chaff. My guests are with me. Gloria Haji is here with me, and so is Kwaku Kobia Asante with me. And we've been talking about the role of the media going into the 2020 elections, before, during, and after the elections. We've had time to look at the before, at least from the time that the Electoral Commission started its registration exercise. But before we went for the break, you made a point about the impact of COVID-19 on media houses and our work. And Gloria brilliantly also made a point about how, you know, because of the COVID-19, you know, people are hard to cut down on the number of people who are out there. But Gloria, would this necessarily impact on coverage going into the elections?
Of course, because, well, absolutely, it will impact. It will have a great impact on coverage, because now the media houses are operating with limited staff. Hitherto, where they had enough, let me put it, enough staff to send them all over the country, everywhere, into every nook and cranny, now they are limited, so they would need to really take hard decisions on who and where to send where, okay, and for what duration. And it's, you know, we have about 275 and that is a lot. Okay, so now, because of the COVID, the people are either working on shift system, or some have been laid off. So you can imagine, at any point in time, because of the shift system, you may not have the required number of journalists, because in fact, going to cover a story even entails so much. It's not just the journalist. You need a technician, you may need the cameraman, you may need maybe someone to mix the sound, and it's a whole team.
But is that not where, you know, the COVID has exposed us to a lot of good technology which has been out there that we haven't harnessed as media, you know, houses in the past? For instance, I've seen a lot of us who have been using Zoom for a lot of our, you know, conversations. I've seen a lot of us who have been using WhatsApp, Facebook, and co. To capture content, send it back to our media houses for, you know, onward publication, you know, on TV and radio and co. Does technology not fill that gap?
When it comes to situational reports, I don't think we can rely solely on technology. You still need somebody at the location to be able to give that report. Okay, because the person needs to be at the location to take the report and send back to the office for filing.
Now, the reason why I asked that was your reference to the technical team, the mic, the sound, and all of those things. So, for instance, now with just a phone, it's possible to capture what is happening now, feed it back to your media house for them to also, you know, show it on their TV or print it and co. So technology then allows for some gaps that are otherwise would have been left to be filled. Or
yeah, granted, but here is a situation. We already identified the situation where the media houses are already financially challenged, even before the COVID came in. So you realize that not all media houses have at least good technology to use, good machines, good cameras to use. So the person may have a phone to use, but the phone may not be the high quality type to give you the good sound and pictures. Okay, so they will still be limited in a way, because then the sound quality and the picture quality could be affected, and any serious media organization would want good things to come out. Okay, so that the audience will be engaged, will continually be engaged. So yes, I still think we need some people.
Are there implications for this cost analysis we are doing now in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on media houses when it comes to the coverage? Are there ramifications for us?
I foresee huge limitations in the coverage of the media going to the 2020 elections, which is just 2 weeks away. When we say 2020, it looks like
it's far.
Just 2 weeks away. And here's the point, like Gloria is saying, election coverage comes with huge infrastructure from the media. And then again, we have played ourselves into a system where every media house want to pride themselves to be the the election center, the election house, you know all these names. This is where everybody wants to say, this is where your best journalism must be showcased. And it is not only in Ghana, across everywhere. The media houses feel this is the time that we have to prove to our audience, our loyal audience, that they don't have to look anywhere. Come to us. We will monitor the elections. We will survey the grounds, let you know what is there to know. And then COVID-19 rears its head. I get a point about technology and all that. But you see, there are two things. One, about the training of the journalist. We come from a background where technology came to meet us midway. So for a lot of the training of journalists, what we call multimedia journalism has not been something that sits well with a lot of media houses. You're talking about having a smartphone. You will cover and take a lot of shots, but it's not all the coverage you need. In TV production, 30 seconds, 20 seconds of the shot. You have somebody who have to sit down and edit. If you're not trained in multimedia-wise, you don't know. You can't do it. Okay. Again, journalism is about asking questions. It's about looking for sources. It's about speaking to the right people. Technology can't do that. It's about human relations. So whatever it is, you still need somebody to go down to the nooks and crannies to fish out the source and speak to that person, because really the person who is listening wants to hear it from the source. This is what has happened, and this person is the assemblyman on the ground, and he knows the area, and so we are speaking to him. People can know that, yes, we are speaking to this person. So with COVID-19 rearing its head, meaning that when it comes to human resource-wise, the media is cut down so that people can go. When it comes to motivation-wise, even for them who are on the ground, they are less motivated to do the work. Okay? And then some other things also play into it. We are heading into an election to the point where the penetration of internet and social media and this user-generated media content has also come up, so that a lot more people will be covering the elections, giving their own political leanings, interests, whether good or bad, and putting pictures out there to say, at Kwesi Team constituency, this is what is happening. Oh, they are taking the boxes away. This is the time that everybody is running back to the mainstream media for verification. Let us see if indeed Peace FM will do it. Let us see if indeed eTV will confirm that what is happening in Kwesi Team is true. And this is the situation where eTV maybe may not happen, but eTV don't have anybody in Kwesi Team. Who do we then fall on to say this information coming from this social media account on Twitter or Facebook is indeed true, and so we should be worried? This is the problem.
Let me take the opportunity to announce to our listeners and our viewers that the GMABC group, the Global Media Broadcasting Group, we are telling Ghanaians that the election camp is here. From the morning of the elections to the time that the results are declared, rest assured we'll be here to give you coverage. Our correspondents across the 275 constituencies have all been activated, and so if you're looking for the news, if you're looking for the real-time information for the election come 7th of December, this is the place for you to be. And so I invite you, my guests, to be watching eTV from, let's say, the 6th, 7th, 8th. The Electoral Commission says 24 hours. So by 8th, we'll know who would have won throughout the period. We can promise you live, real-time coverage of the 2020 elections.
eTV has money. COVID-19 didn't affect it.
It affected us. It affected us. But in the interest of our audience, of our viewers and our listeners, we are putting everything into
Hopefully,
it.
we will not go beyond 1 week.
Anyway, so let's come to a salient point that Kokuyi raised about social media. Now it's become an integral part of, media space, whether we like it or not.
That's right.
The mainstream media sometimes takes content from social media and it becomes a national conversation that we have. What do we do with social media, especially when it comes to elections coverage? Gloria?
As much as possible, I would prefer, okay, that's my personal opinion. I prefer that the traditional media is relied on for information, because like I said, the media houses send out journalists into the field, so at least they are able to see what is happening, get the situational analysis, not rely on somebody else's. In fact, whatever information it is they may get from social media should be treated with a pinch of salt until they can verify it and know that this is really what it is. I do not think we should rely on, or media houses should bank their hopes on social media messages flying about, because anybody can put anything on social media without authenticating such information. So I would really, really encourage journalists, media personnel, to take anything they see on social media with a pinch of salt. Let us verify.
But here is the case we already admit that we are understaffed going into the elections. Here is the case, something may be happening in Kukrantumi, where your correspondent may not be there, and then the person is doing a live video of what is happening there at Kukrantumi, that maybe some ballot box has been snatched, and so he's doing a live stream of what is happening there. Is that not content that the media has?
I think that there is this thing also going around about networking, media networking. So you may not, the media house may not necessarily need to have a correspondent on the ground. The media house or the journalist or the editor could network with whichever media house has a rep there, okay, to be able to verify or authenticate the story. Because it could be something, you know, there's photoshopping, technology does a whole lot of things. So I really, really wish.
But you also do know about Scoop.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to be the first to, you know, broadcast the content to, because it's a competition, whether we admit it or not.
But what does it pay, okay, or what do you gain by giving a false scoop? You give a scoop, then later on everyone realizes this is falsehood. It discredits the media organization, and you could even lose your viewership, your audience share, everything. So is it worth losing that market share as to remaining authentic to the viewer, to the listener, to the audience? I think authenticity is the best.
All right. Yeah. Let me go to the phone lines and speak to the Vice President for Primpark, and you know, also find out from them how they've been preparing for the coverage of the 2020 elections come 7 December, just a few days away. And you know, throughout the process, before, during, and after, what the challenges have been and what they consider as fair reportage. Mr. David Tamaklo is the Vice President for Primpark. David, good evening.
Good evening, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
So,
and, good evening to your panelists.
All right. So we've been talking about, you know, the role that the media is going to play or has been playing before 7th of December. As print media, what do you consider as the expectations that people have when it comes to, you know, your area?
Well, I think that print media is not so different when it comes to expectation of the public or the public following the media. The print media's role is not so different from the other media, as in TV and broadcasting, radio broadcasting. We are aware that there's a little shift these days. People are going into more or less into social media. So a lot of people read their stories from social media. But then you still can't discount the traditional media. Most of the traditional media these days are also using social media platforms to propagate their stories. So yes, the media is, there's still a lot of expectation from the media generally, but there's a shift. The social media is taking dominance over the traditional media these days.
All right, Dave, my next question has to do with a point that we all admitted has affected a lot of the media houses, which has to do with COVID-19 and its impact on, you know, media houses. Has it impacted on your businesses as, you know, print media?
Sami, I think that if you talk about COVID-19 and its impact on the media, print media has been affected probably more than any other sector of the media. We have been affected because, this is one of the things they say is that you don't have to shake hands, you don't have to touch something that other people have touched and all that. So certainly it was a problem for print media to continue circulating, aside the general challenges of, trying to cut down on workers and also reducing access to the public and all that. We have the challenge of not coming out at all, because if you do come out, people are afraid to buy the paper. And, people buy newspaper. One person buys the paper, and about 10 people read the same paper. So it was a very difficult challenge for people to go buying paper and sharing it and all that. So most of the newspapers went out of stock during the COVID season. So that's if you're talking about the impact on the print media, we've been affected greatly.
All right, so let's look at what people should expect from the print media going into the elections. What should we expect from, the print media, which has been badly hit by COVID-19? Even prior to that, you have been competing for space with online tabloids and now social media as well.
Well, as for, the election is one big bonanza every 4 years for the media. When I say bonanza, everybody knows that the public relies on what we report, and so there's a lot of expectation from the media, the print media, as well as other media platforms. What we've been trying to do prior to the COVID, the umbrella body Print Park tried to organize some workshops. We're planning to organize some workshop for our members. Unfortunately, the Print Park, the COVID made it impossible for us to pull up funds to organize the workshops. So most of the workshops we had planned to organize couldn't come through because of funding issue related to COVID. But in recent times, we tried to collaborate, join our other sister organizations like GJ, get our members to participate in some of the programs, the workshops they have done in terms of training. So some of our members have been joining these organizations for training and have gone through the training. Behind the scene, we talk to our media owners, newspaper owners, as to what the public is expecting from them, how we need to use the occasion to win trust for the industry, the newspaper industry, and all that. So everybody is anxious to ensure that we all put in our best to ensure that our role in the election is not discounted.
Let me ask a very thorny one, which has to do with media houses who are expecting to have been on the list of special voters, before the final voting on the 7th of December. The fact that we've been told that a lot of media houses did not find their names on the special voting list. How do you feel about that? And were you affected as a group?
Obviously, I think that's an unfortunate situation. It's the first time it's happened to me, particularly since I started covering elections. But I think that it's a general thing. Not a lot of the media houses, and I hear even that some of the security operatives who are going to be at the forefront of the election works on the day have also have not seen their names. So it's a general thing, and I think that the EC's chairperson was trying to explain somehow today. Apart from expressing a regret, there has not been any, for me, any useful justification for it. But thankfully, they provided an alternative That is to enable every media house or journalist who wants to cover the election to get an accreditation, so that on the day they will allow journalists to have access to the pools earlier to enable them go about their work. I know there's still going to be a challenge about it, because I mean, you have people queuing for to go and vote, and someone pulls up and said, "I'm a journalist," so they walk you past the queue. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, but I hope the public will understand that our work is also very important for the peaceful conduct of the election. So we just have to appeal to the public that the unfortunate thing has happened, but we need to prefer a solution to it, and this is the only alternative we have.
David, we are grateful you made time to speak to us tonight.
You're welcome, my brother.
David Tamaklo is the Vice President for Primpact, joining us with their concerns as well. I know our time is exhausted. We have just 7 minutes to end the conversation. So, Koko, let me start with you. Within 2 minutes, on the matter, the question I asked David about the absence of the names of media personnel on the special voting list. Do you think it would affect coverage on D-Day?
Oh yes, of course. I mean, it is the same people we are going to rely on to survey the grounds, to bring us the news from Ododo to Kwesimintin, from Kukurantumi to Ten. These are the same people, okay? I have colleagues whose names are missing. In fact, my name is missing as well, who will have to go to their hometown on the mountains, Aburi thereabout, to go and vote. So if on the D-Day this person decides to say, I'm choosing my franchise, and for that matter, I'm going to vote, it means that the ground that he had to go and cover may be limited. So yes, it is really going to affect the work of the media, and we are calling on the Electoral Commission, if it's not too late, if there's anything they could do. Like the chairperson has always been saying, they work hand in hand with the media. I think that they should try and provide this assistance to help the media, so that we can vote early, and then ensure that we cover the grounds, because as part of we covering the grounds, surveying and bringing the news is also a way of calming nerves, so that people know what is going around, and for that matter they can rely on the media and say, okay, things are calm, and for that matter we can go about our works.
Gloria, would an accreditation suffice?
No, not in my opinion. An accreditation will not suffice, because like he rightly said, on the day of the election, on E-Day, if a journalist or a reporter has to vote in one constituency, but his boss or he has to go cover the electoral process in another constituency, then he's torn between the two.
But is it not for the media houses, the situation we find ourselves now, to now fine-tune their original plans, where they would ask, for instance, if I live around Kaswa, and then if you live around, let's say, Adenta, and previously you were going to cover Kaswa, and I was going to cover Adenta, to just re-engineer the format for the coverage, so that you who lives at Adenta can cover Adenta, and I who live at Malam, or let's say Kaswa, will cover Kaswa.
Well, they could, if they have the means, they could do that. But then again, then it means that at least during the period of their voting, the journalist or the reporter voting, no story would go out until he or she has finished, before the person can start reporting. Is that how we want it? I would have loved that from the time the machines are set up to the close of day, when the countings are being done, reports are being provided timeously, so that, like he said, people's nerves are calmed, people know that this is exactly what is happening, so that they do not start panicking when something starts, people start throwing things around on social media. We need calm, we need to maintain the peace and stability of Ghana.
All right. I will end shortly, but how different would a journalist's work be this time around?
Well, a few pointers to look out for. Number one, the trust in the media. From studies, at least from the recent Afrobarometer indicates that the public trust in the media is waning. And let's not forget that the basis of freedom of the media, as enshrined in Chapter 12 of the Constitution, is that the media is going to hold public officers accountable in the state or on behalf of the public. But the public is losing trust in the media. Two, like I did mention some time ago, there's political capture, so that a lot of the politician-owned, business-owned media outlets are also at the forefront now, going to make extreme the reportage. So it's going to make it extremely difficult for that neutral, objective journalist or media house that's trying to bring us the science in fairness and in its balance form. Three, there's the falling ethical and professional standards that we all know. It keeps falling. At least from our monitoring, we see a lot of these incidents happening. Then again, there's the social media bit where they're going to make the work difficult for the mainstream media because a lot of people are throwing falsehood and they have to come in and do the work. And then there is COVID-19 affecting the media houses in the sense that it has cut down their human resource support, cut down their access to infrastructure to do this work. So going into these elections, given all these points where these media houses are suffering, the media houses or the journalists will have to circumvent through all these challenges to ensure that they bring us the reportage. And this is why this election is very crucial and a difficult one for the media houses going in.
Thank you, Koku Krobia Asante, Program Officer for the Media Foundation for West Africa, and Gloria Haji, who is the Executive Secretary for the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, joining me this evening for our discussion on the role the media will be playing going into the election 7th of December. On this note, I would like to thank every one of you for being a part of tonight's edition of Fact Sheet, which is every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9. Tomorrow, God willing, at 10 a.m., there will be a repeat broadcast of this show on eTVGhana. But do make a date tomorrow morning around 5:30. The Happy Morning Show would be on. Myself, Fatih Shaibu Alibi Monyamado will be on for the Happy Morning Show, and so we'd expect for you to be there to discuss the issues, and we try to bring you concise, precise information live on the Happy Morning Show. My name is Samuel Ishen. God willing, tomorrow morning would meet.